There is a hunger in the world. And I'm not just talking about the hunger for food. I'm actually talking about the hunger to be listened to. Because if you listen to someone, you can change the whole relationship and how they relate to you. Today, we're going to explore how do you improve your active listening skills. You know, if you do some research and you put together a list of essential skills for leaders or managers, one of the things that will be always mentioned and probably will be near the top is listening skills, because it's so incredibly important. Listening has the power to change our relationship. So today we're going to explore 4 different ways that will help you improve your active listening skills. I think one of the first times I realized that listening was incredibly important was in a lesson that I learned from my mother. My mother had this saying. She used to say, tea can solve all the problems of the world. Now, that's a curious statement. What is it about the magical power of tea that can cause all the problems to float away? And of course, she wasn't really referring to tea. What she was referring to was the fact that every now and again, the front door would knock and someone would be there. And normally my mother would go to them and they would walk in and she would invite them to the kitchen for a cup of tea. Now sometimes this person was weighed down with a problem or a concern, and what they were doing was coming to my mother to pour or to talk about their tale of grief. And so my mother would make the tea, she would sit down, and they would chat over a cup of tea. And of course, my mother said very little. More often than not, what she was doing was listening, but listening profoundly. And after the conversation, the person would walk out, and this time there was a little smile. They felt a little lighter. And my mother would close the door and she'd say once again, see, tea just solved another problem. And of course, she wasn't really referring to the tea. What she was referring to was the power of active listening. And so in our lives, we want to make sure that this active listening is fully activated. So let's explore 4 different ways that can truly help us be better active listeners. The first is to get rid of distraction. Now, we live in a world of so many different distractions. Even in a conversation, we're attached to all these different electronics, our phones, our watches, etc. And so it is so hard just to be present with another person. Now, if we put that in a virtual environment, when we're in a Zoom meeting with somewhere else, where the person's not even in the room, then even more so, all the different things around us in our desk can be areas of distraction. So what we want to try and do is to make sure that when we are in the presence of another person, that we are getting rid of as many distractions as possible. Put away our phones. Silence them. Don't have them on vibrate, because if they go into vibrate, that's going to cause another distraction. Help us just truly focus on another person. One of the things that I said, if something's weighing you down or if you're worried about something to come, what I always say to someone is, get a piece of paper. Write down what's concerning you. And then say, you know what, I'm going to have a conversation now, and that will be there in that piece of paper after the conversation. What we want to try and do is to make sure that we are fully present and we are not distracted. Because if we don't do that, then no matter what follows, it will not be pure active listening. The second point is to listen with your whole body. Now, what I mean by that is, we have an organ, our ear, which helps us hear, but listening happens in the whole body. And so part of engagement, part of listening, is to engage as well with our whole body. And so what we want to try and do is to constantly give off signals that we are connected and that we are intent in listening to another person. And so we do that in various ways. We do it, first of all, with a simple smile, that we indicate to the other person that we are present, that we want to be there, that this is important for us. Then we want to lean in a little bit. And by the leaning in as well, we show to the other person that we are engaged, that we are present. We want to nod or to give indications that we are following along in the conversation. We're not interrupting, but what we're trying to do is to signal to that person that we are following along in the conversation and that we are intently listening to them. And so therefore, this skill of listening with our whole body creates an atmosphere of presence and signals to the other person that we are in this and that we are truly actively listening to them. Now, if you're enjoying today's video, I invite you to subscribe to the channel below, to press the bell. You will be reminded of further episodes and videos as they're released. And each week I attempt to publish something around the area of emotional intelligence that will help you improve your relationships at work and at home. The third area when it comes to improving our active listening skills is to know our listening barriers. You know, unfortunately, all of us have got different habits, and these habits mitigate against us truly being present and actively listening to another person. So some barriers, for example, are we're constantly thinking about how we're going to respond. And of course, when we're thinking about how we're going to respond, we're really not present to what is being said. Or sometimes some people are anxious to talk and anxious to butt in or anxious to say something. Of course, that shows up both non-verbally and verbally as well. So there's a whole list of different barriers, but it's important for us to know our specific habits, habits that we have noticed that get in the way of us being present in any conversation. And the fourth area is to constantly check in with ourselves. You know, especially if a conversation is a longer conversation, we're not going to be 100% totally focused at each and every moment. But it is important that we build into our conversations touchstones, touch points, where we're able to check in with ourselves and just see, are we fully present? Is there anything we could do? Is there adjustment that we could make in our body language, etc., that will truly help us be present? Because what we want to try and do is to notice quicker those moments perhaps when we're not fully engaged and re-engage once again so that the person truly knows that we are engaged and that we are listening totally with our whole being. Never underestimate the power of active listening. Never underestimate its power to transform relationships, because people are desperate to be heard totally, desperate to be listened to. And if you can embrace those active listening skills, you will transform both your relationships at work and at home. And if you've enjoyed this video, I invite you to watch the next video, which talks about how to give better feedback to team members.